spectrum without fully reaching it, since it entails the pre-existing economic subordination of the employee to the capitalist, as well as the fact that the company reserves the right to use force after the employee has signed on. Since such relationships are not entirely consensual, we can therefore conclude...
In what senses do they have the right to use force? Let me just break this down. If I became a McDonald's fry cook, what sort of scenarios would they be allowed to use force against me in? Maybe if I open up the cash register and just started pocketing it, without be defending their property. Maybe if I try to pee in the fry oil, when again, that would be protecting it. It seems like all the situations in which they could use force against me are ones in which I'm violating their property rights, and they're getting rid of me because I'm trespassing against them. So A, it strikes me that this is not like some unique restriction being placed upon employees. It's a restriction placed upon everybody. And B, this is why we don't talk about force or coercion or things like this. We talk about aggression, conflict, right? You are never allowed to commit an aggressive act. Never, not one time. Never, never, never. Right? These defensive actions are not aggressive.
That the wage relationship is, in fact, a form of coercion, although one that is mitigated by the possibilities of negotiation, and without going too far afield, the freedom of association such that one can leave the contract at will. One problem that communists frequently raise is that private property, as a whole, is foundational on coercion. The most intuitive way to illustrate this is the island analogy, which demonstrates the fact that private property is foundational on enclosure, which itself requires coercion to maintain. The first use of the island analogy can perhaps be attributed to John A. Hobson, but you probably know it from Vaush, who came up with a rather vulgar version of it. If you haven't heard it before, basically it goes like this. Imagine you and another person, we'll call him Dr. Pavel.
Yeah, so we're really doing the Coconut Island thing. Okay, go on.
Are the only survivors of a plane crash. Clearly Bane wasn't involved, since if he were, the plane would have crashed with no survivors. Anyway, Dr. Pavel wakes up before you do, and he gathers all the coconuts on the island, which are the only source of food. You wake up, you're hungry, and you eventually find Dr. Pavel, who has hoarded all the coconuts. He says he will only split them with you if you do whatever he asks you to do. If you refuse, then you will starve. If you accept, then you are under his thumb. When Dr. Pavel gather up all the coconuts, this is called enclosure.
Yeah, so let me just respond to this. Let me first of all say, well, I believe sex work is real work. I think Vosh is being very sex worker phobic with this analogy. I think it's real work. If you want to suck penis, get coconuts, you go, girl. Now, let me twist this analogy for you. Let me send this one back to you, Natty Bud Light. I've contracted a disease. This disease, it works in a very particular way. It means that I will die if I do not have sex with at least one woman every week. As it turns out, no woman wants to have sex with me. Would I be allowed to force any women to have sex with me? Because otherwise I'm being coerced by those women. And would the women be allowed to say, okay, well, fine, you can have sex with me so long as you do the dishes? Would they be enslaving me? I was like, no! This shows how when you invert the proper order of property rights, you arrive at total and utter evil. Maybe this guy says, yeah, the sex disease haver, they're allowed to rape. Well, I'll take the strong stance, I'll bite the bullet, that I'm in fact opposed to rape. This guy, he's for rape, I'm against rape. That's just, I know it's controversial, but I don't like it when people are raped. Dememzia for 2 BRL, thank you very much. Liquid Zulu McDonald's piss fries, indeed.
Securing exclusive access to a resource. This is what happens under capitalism when a company stakes a claim on a coal deposit.
Can I see that back again?
Pavel gathered up all the coconuts. This is called enclosure. Securing exclusive access to a resource. This is...
Did you hear that cut there? He cut 2 breath sounds right next to each other. Like, did you guys hear that one? Let me roll back a little bit.
This is what happens under capitalism when a company stakes a claim on a coal deposit, or when it purchases the... This is what happens under... Split them with you if you do whatever he asks you to do. If you refuse, then you will starve. If you accept, then you are under his thumb. When Dr. Pavel gathered up all the coconuts, this is called enclosure. Securing exclusive access to a resource. This...
You hear that one? You hear it? This is why I call this guy a slop tuber. Maybe just cut out that little bit of audio there. It's just try. Just try a little bit. That's all I ask.
This is what happens under capitalism when a company stakes a claim on a coal deposit, or when it purchases the land on which a river or aquifer rests.
Let me teach Natty Bud Light a little bit of audio editing, shall I? Just real quick. Go away. Okay. Don't care. Oh my god, I do not care. Oh, it's got this fucking, gap. Audacity is so fucking annoying these days. Let me just teach you a little bit of audio editing. Let's say we record something. The quick brown fox jumped over the lazy dog, and then the fox started doing other things, and let me just start reading some chat. Okay, I watched a little bit of AOTC and took some notes. I understand why pragmatism is bad now, and that the NEP is very important to stick to, Dememzia. Okay, let's stop the recording there. So, there will be sections in this recording where there will be little breath sounds, right? And you might have multiple takes, where you each have a breath sound at the end of one, and the start of the next one, where you're cutting them together. You can do this amazing thing in Audacity. I'm not going to mono it, I don't care enough. Where, let's say I don't want any of this any longer. I can just silence that part. Just take out your breaths, silence them. Maybe it kind of goes into the next word, though. So let's do effects, fading, fade in, and then I can still have a fade in for that, right? And then cut out the rest of it. A real quick audio editing lesson for Natty Bud Light there. Yeah, we're done with destroying him in philosophy. Now we're destroying him on the ability of him to edit together a coherent video.
So on. Now, Mintuswave did a whole video where he attempted to respond to the island analogy, in which he was basically
He did it again.
shadowboxing the concept of enclosure without realizing it. He made a rather simplistic Lockean argument, which is that private property arises from mixing labor with the land. Dr. Pavel exerted himself gathering up the coconuts, so he has mixed his labor with the land. Now, to respond to Mintuswave, I have to first explain various theories of ownership within private property theory.
Or is there a super chat? Oh no, the Memzia got mentioned, yeah, of course. Or the guy responding to the Memzia.
And then rebut them individually. I could just rebut Locke, but obviously the philosophy of libertarianism is a lot broader than just Locke, and some anarcho-capitalists actually disagree with Locke. Locke's theory is a form of labor or theory of ownership, which supposes that labor is a kind of property which can be imbued into other.
Well, at least this time he acknowledged that we disagree with Locke on his labor theory of property. At least he's done that.
Objects. To labor, a person must be capable of initiating actions, and thus his act of laboring belongs to him. Therefore, to use an object in the process of labor, such as, let's say, by picking a coconut, the act of labor becomes immanent in the object, and thus the object becomes an extension of that person and his act.
I have a Marxist argument for the coconut island. If the Marxist wants to get coconuts without working, that sounds like they want to extract the surplus labor value of the coconut proletarian. Well, there you go.
An obvious problem with the labor theory of ownership is that it rests on a category error. An act is not the same type as an object, therefore there cannot possibly be a mixing of labor with an object such that the object can become an extension of a person. Another problem is what I might call the fetishization of labor, which is a form of reification.
The fetishization of labor. I wonder, good thing this guy has not been using the labor theory of value throughout this entire video. Because, you know, I think that would fall under the exact same category error. Labor is not the same thing as value. It is not what is generating value. What generates value, I mean, you're attaining your ends. How do you attain your ends? You work for them. You engage in action.
There is, in reality, no real object called labor that can become imbued in an object. Instead, what actually concretely exists is the labor relationship. Marx wrote about the same problem regarding value in his theory of commodity fetishism. Basically, there's no actual entity called value that resides in a commodity, and so the discourse of value serves to obscure the concrete labor relationships that underlie commodity production. Here we are basically dealing with the same thing, but with labor instead of value.
I think what this is this guy is somebody who watched a couple Molyneux videos back in the day, and then the only real serious engagement, somewhat serious engagement with philosophy was he started reading leftists, particularly Marxians. I think that's what we've got on our hands here. I don't think this guy actually does understand our theory, even 1% as well as he thinks he does.
There's no such thing as labor within an object. The labor theory of ownership serves to obscure the real relationship of persons and objects, which is bound up with the physical necessities of the body and the motivations of people seeking access and use of those objects. In essence, what the labor theory of ownership obscures is that there's a meaningful difference between acquisition of an object for use value.
Why are we even going into the labor theory of ownership, by the way? He's already acknowledged that this is not a theory that we adhere to, that this is completely absent in our modern theory. So why is he going into this? What does he hope to gain from all of this bullshit?
An acquisition of...
By the way, do you guys like my fucking stream deck here? Just got it working today. Isn't that a beaut? I can just click little buttons. I just have like little fucking buttons on the McDonald's register in front of me. And I can switch between as many different fucking scenes as I want. Beautiful stuff. I'm a professional streamer, guys. I'm a fucking professional streamer.
An object for exchange value. To acquire an object for use value is simply to acquire it for the satiation of one's needs, and as such, one will not acquire more than one needs or will need within a reasonable period of time. However, to acquire an object for exchange value, such as what was done by Dr. Pavel when he gathered up all the coconuts, is to acquire the object extraneously.
Okay, so he's against having anything acquired for exchange value, which means in his in his monarchist society, there would be no money. There could be no money. It's a stateful, perhaps classless, definitely moneyless society, and I'm supposed to accept that this guy's not a Marxist.
Dr. Pavel doesn't need to eat all the coconuts at once, and it's
Check chat every so often, and I've got chat right fucking in front of me. I've been reading it the whole goddamn time.
as soon as you come into his frame of reference, it becomes clear that you will need them just as much as he does. Therefore, Pavel's arrogation to the station of ownership of the coconuts, which only really makes sense in relation to other people's access to the coconuts, since, as we have already established, Lockean ownership is an extension of self-ownership, is a category error, basically just signifies the deprivation of the use value of other people who would otherwise have been able to acquire the coconuts. It is the
Is he doing that TikTok edit song?
normative claim that economic relationships based on exchange value are valid.
I already got a second monitor. I got two of them right in front of me right here. People assume that I don't have any of the listen, I'm a professional streamer here. I've got the whole 9 yards. I got the webcam, I got the stream deck, I got the 2 monitors, I got the fucking 16 consoles, 20 monitors, a million wires, whatever the fucking XQC clip was. I got it fucking all. Don't you worry about it.
Which underlies Dr. Pavel's claim to ownership, not his ownership, which implies his right to use the coconuts as exchange.
Oh yeah, no, that fucking Sneeko tweet. Yeah, did you guys see that one? I got my first viral tweet. Do this one. Oh, it's almost 100k. Nice. Yeah, no, like his fucking eyes. Like, I can't even move my eyes that fast. I'm not like that is such an awkward movement to do. Gaffer. This is so awkward to do with your eyes. I don't know. Like, this guy's his eyeballs are on a goddamn swivel. It's insane to me.
Values. To conceive of the coconuts as though they were imbued with Dr. Pavel's labor is, from a material point of view, indefensible, and thus one should have exclusive rights to the coconuts in a state of nature. It is the invention of exchange value which produces the enclosure, not the act of picking the coconuts. Furthermore, I will let Ellen Mexons of Wood elaborate on this problem.
Like, the thing is, I'm not opposed to having quotes in video essays. Of course I'm not opposed. I have plenty of quotes in video essays. But I think if you're including a quote in a video essay, it's because you can't say it better. You can't elaborate on it better, or you're trying to show what somebody is saying on it and saying, okay, well, this is this perspective, and here I'm going to be like responding to it or something. But this guy's every other fucking sentence, like, or as fucking Jean-Jacques Rousseau said, or as fucking Pavel's Wavels said, or whatever the fuck the current name is. You know, as Marx believes, it's okay, Natty Bud Light, you are allowed to have your own ideas. That is permitted. You can have your own ideas. They don't all have to be quotes.
For one thing, it turns out that there is no direct correspondence between labor and property, because one man can appropriate the labor of another. He can acquire a right of property in something by mixing it not with his
Why did he change the audio just for this quote and not for the other ones?
own labor, but the labor of someone else whom he employs. It appears that the issue for Locke has less to do with the activity of labor as such than with its profitable use. In calculating the value of the acre in America, for instance, he talks not about the Indians' expenditure of effort, labor, but about the Indians' failure to realize a profit. The issue, in other words, is not the labor of a human being, but the productivity of property, its exchange value, and its application to commercial profit. The second theory of private property we'll be examining is first possession theory, which is the basis partly for proprietarianism. This is a rather parsimonious theory. Whoever can acquire an object first before others can, what is called original appropriation, is entitled to that object. He is then justified in defending his possession.
No, Paradigm, my favorite quote you did was in the AI defense video where you quoted a Luddite but replaced it with AI rhetoric. Yeah, that one was pretty fun. Like, oh, sorry, no, Stephen Zapata didn't say that about AI. This is actually some fucking random asshole saying about the printing press or whatever it was. I know it was about photography, I think. Yeah, if you're a photographer, it's not true art. Like, oh, actually, no, that wasn't. I mixed up my quotes there for a second. Whoops-a-daisies.
That object with four.
And you can see the actual reason why that has to be a quote. It can't just be me saying something. It has to be a quote there. I don't think a lot of these have to be quotes. I really don't. And, you know, perhaps I'm being a little bit mean against Natty Bud Light here, you know, being too harsh in my critiques. But I think he deserves it if he's going to be this fucking dishonest. about libertarianism whilst claiming to be, like, in some way having expertise. Well, I'm not even a fucking professional streamer. I still got my fucking phone giving me alarms. So I'm professional.
Of course. According to this theory, since Dr. Pavel appropriated the coconuts before you did, he is justified in preventing you from taking the coconuts using force. Also, he is perfectly within his rights to make your access to the coconuts conditional upon doing whatever he wants you to do. The real question...
Don't hate a man for citing sources. That's not my problem with it. It's this every other paragraph. You see this a lot in, like, college essays. It's every other paragraph. And it's like, or as this person says, because they got to show their professor that they did the reading. But it's just such an obtrusive way to engage with an essay. It's really not good. It's fine to cite sources. You can just have, like, a little fucking footnote up or something, or have, like, a bibliography, like, hey, you can read this for more information on what I'm saying. And it's like all the time, just, or as this guy is saying, all the goddamn time. And it's like, I don't think, I think you could remove half of these quotes and not lose a single thing in the video, at least half.
However, remains what is the actual basis for first possession. Now, if you'll remember, anarcho-capitalism is primarily a legal theory, so it's helpful to look to common law to find answers to questions regarding ownership.
Are we not going to debunk the first comer principle? Well, it's primarily a legal theory, so let's look to common law and what it has to say. Please tell me that's not what's about to happen. Please tell me he's not going to just go, well, in common law, that's not how it is. Please tell me that's not about to happen.
Generally, the common law jurisprudence on first possession conceives of a state of nature as open access, in which all objects may be acquired by any person. We can easily imagine if Dr. Pavel were the only person to wash up on the island, the whole island would be freely accessible by him and for him. However, if there were other people on the island as well, then there suddenly arises the problem of how to mediate this open access. First possession seems to be the most intuitive solution to this question. Whoever acquires an object is entitled to exclusive use and dispensation of it. But the problem is, again, there is no real entity called ownership that exists.
Correct. Ownership is not an entity. It is a relationship between two entities. Am I going fucking crazy here? Did anybody at any point ever claim or imply that ownership is an entity? No, the first comer principle states how this relationship between entities is supposed to work. Right? It's claiming that, well, the first comer has priority, because any later comers, they're initiating conflicts. They don't have any sort of coherent justification, etc., etc., etc. That's the first comer principle. It's not saying that ownership is an entity.
So what really is ownership? In Carol Rose's 1985 paper...
You see what I mean? Why do we care about Carol Rose's 1985 paper? Who the fuck is Carol goddamn Rose?
Possession as the origin of property. She goes through various common law cases in which rights to property were...
So this guy just got on Google Scholar, right? He just got on Google Scholar, and that's why he brought up common law. He just got on Google Scholar, found this, that's why he had to somehow bring common law into this. Because it really is just has nothing to do with the fucking argument.
...were debated and established versus opposing claimants. For example, in Pearson v. Post, a hunter had a fox in his gun sights, and then an interloper fired, killing the fox and bagging it for himself. The court decided that the interloper, rather than the hunter, had the proper claim to the fox.
Who gives a single fucking shit about any of this? What does this have to do with anything regarding the thesis? You know, I'm very careful in my video essays. I have a particular thesis that I'm building upon throughout the whole video. I keep building upon this thesis and referring back to the thesis, and everything has its own place in building up this entire argument. What does this have to do with fucking anything? Anything? Who cares about what the fucking common law said? Who gives a shit? Doesn't matter.
Because he was the one who committed a clear act, which constitutes an unequivocal intention of appropriating the animal to his individual use. Rose elaborates that this case reveals two important bases for ownership relations. One, a clear act, and two, a communication of intent. This leads her to conclude that exactly what ownership is basically a statement. This is mine, which is part of an ongoing...
Do I even have to say anything about ownership is a statement? I own the moon. It's a statement. That is a statement. Does that establish that I own the moon? Let's say it does. Could we avoid conflicts? Could somebody else discover that I just made that statement if they were to come towards the moon? We can't avoid conflicts. If only there were some sort of a theory going on here about how we should avoid these conflicts. You know, conflict avoiding norms. You know, so some sort of theory of property rights. If only. But no, we gotta stick to the fucking common law, I guess.
Negotiation with other people who may very well, as interlopers, argue, this is mine instead. To illustrate this, she introduces the principle of adverse possession, in which title to land which has been neglected by the original owner can be granted to an interloper who sufficiently improves the land instead. In other words, courts are deciding, based on the actions and intentions of the respective actors, whose claim of "this is mine" is valid. The takeaway from Rose's discussion is that ownership is not a concrete moral right, but it's...
Well, yeah, you would fucking get that from common law, wouldn't you? Because common law is not a theory of natural law, is it? It fucking is it. If only there was a video out there that was responding to libertarianism, and then, you know, maybe we'd have something here. Because libertarianism does have a theory of natural law. But unfortunately, Fortunately, this video is called debunking every common law argument ever, not debunking every anarcho-capitalist argument ever.
Instead, a conversation which establishes conventions, and because of that, no theory of private property can be absolutely correct. It can only be legitimated. But of course, those parties which legitimate private property, i.e. courts, police, administrative bodies, employ force to do so, which calls into question exactly whether the concept of ownership can be compatible with negative liberty. If the whole basis of libertarian economies is the legitimation of claims by unilateral violence,
it's not. So what he's done there, in case you didn't pick up on that, is he went into the common law, plucked out a definition from the first article that came up on Google Scholar when he Googled this, or probably when he got ChatGPT to Google this. He plucked that definition out there after reading the abstract, and then he's saying, well, this is what ownership means. But then these libertarians, they're talking crazy if this is what ownership is, even though we've got our own fucking definition of ownership. Not going to look at that one, though. This is fucking so dishonest.
Is this really negative liberty? No, of course not. It's fundamentally based on coercion. It is a forcible interruption of a free conversation between autonomous individuals what to do with the objects under open access, which is the default and a state of nature, by those who want decisively to end the conversation on their terms. As Proudhon said, property is theft. The question...
See, what did that add? Like, for any defenders of this guy in chat, what did it add when he said, as Proudhon says, property is theft? Apart from saying, see, I know about Proudhon. What does it actually accomplish apart from that? What does that establish in terms of his argument? What does it add to anything? What is he saying by including this fucking quote? What does that achieve? It's just a complete random insertion. Who cares? Who fucking cares, bro?
Remains then, why do proponents of capitalist private property call themselves libertarian? They should instead call themselves emergentists. They don't believe in liberty, they believe in domination by the most quick and ruthless proto-bourgeoisie, who are the first to send or apart virgin nature.
Whoa, slow down there. It's a lot of jargon. The quickest proto-bourgeoisie. Whoa, okay. He's throwing some hands now. Jesus Christ.
Sure, and who become masters of the earth purely accidentally, i.e. not by means of any real moral substance. It is this facade of objective morality that most of all prevents these emergentists from realizing that they actually support the most rapacious and violent order, which has as its foundation coercion, and which is basically feudal in nature. The establishment of this objective morality in the realm of property is, as I have demonstrated, simply an arrogation and a prejudice, not a moral argument. The enclosure of property comes first. The morality of property only comes later.
Nope, actually not true. How do we arrive at property rights, gentlemen? Everybody in chat, say it with me. Start with the NAP, non-aggression principle. That's actually a norm. It's a moral norm there. I'm not sure if you're aware of this, Natty Bud Light. Start with the non-aggression principle. So how do you get to private property rights after that? Well, private property rights, they're conflict-avoiding norms. So it's just another way of stating the non-aggression principle. Okay. So how do you specifically get to, like, homesteading, and I own this, I own that? How do you get to that? Well, Crusoe and Friday, they're on the island. Crusoe, he takes a stick out of nature. He's the first appropriator of this stick. He walks towards the ocean. He wants to use it to spearfish. Friday comes along and takes that stick from him. Whoops-daisies, we've arrived at a conflict. Whoops-daisies, Friday started that conflict because he's the latecomer. So from the NEP, we arrive at homesteading. That wasn't so difficult, and in fact, Natty Bud Light, you included me in the thumbnail, you mentioned me in the video. If you'd looked at, I believe, the second lesson in my course, I would have given you all that. Or, even any of my goddamn videos where I talk about that. It's the exact same proof.
Lastly, we must also deal with the concrete reality of property in the world as it actually exists today. There's no freely available land for you to homestead. You cannot...
Why might that be? Why might that be? Is it because we've already homesteaded everything? No, that's not the reason. Because the state claims dominion over many unhomesteaded things. Wait a minute. You're the statist, aren't you? You're the fucking statist. You want that to happen. You can't use the current state prevention of homesteading to go, there's nowhere left to homestead. because it's being prevented. This is nonsense.
Appropriate or claim something for yourself if you don't want to work for others. Everything that exists has already been enclosed in the civilized world. We can even argue that since states exist in Africa, nominally at least, those resources are enclosed as well. There's no longer any colonization of quote-unquote empty land. There's no longer a West to expand to. If you want liberty, if you have to reckon with the wage system and the commodity fetishism, which obscures its essentially extractive character. You will either be a wage slave, or you will be lucky enough to be a wage slaver. There is no liberty anymore, at least in the negative sense of that term. So yes, indeed, only the left can legitimately call themselves libertarians. Those weird people on the right who fly the snake flag are just emergentists. But for the sake of simplicity, I will continue to call anarcho-capitalists libertarians for the rest of this video.